Welcome back to WKYT News at 6:30 on the CW Lexington. For many, being told you have cancer is a life-changing moment, but being told the cancer has returned can be crushing.
A Lexington radiation oncologist is attracting some national attention with a treatment for women. Most of them have gone through chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation. Until recently, they were not a candidate for more radiation. Now, a doctor at the Markey Cancer Center is giving them some new hope and, in many cases, a new life.
I think it's a pretty big deal. Do I think this is a breakthrough? Possibly, but I think more importantly than that, I think this is a very important, safe, and valid treatment option that a lot of women, unfortunately, are not offered. And the more I can kind of spread the word and teach people how to do this, I think we'll actually be tremendously able to save a lot of women's lives when they have recurrences such as this.
To help us break down the news tonight, Dr. Jonathan Feddock from the Markey Cancer Center joins us. Doctor, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. I know your time is very valuable these days. Very simply, how does this work when women have gynecologic cancer? They've had different treatments, and you're going to insert seeds into that tumor. How does that work?
Well, for the most part, if you just look at the different types of cancer treatments that we have, radiation is one of the mainstays of treatment. But the primary form that we deliver radiation is by using a machine. It's a machine that works like a CAT scanner or just an X-ray unit, but it delivers radiation from the outside of the body all the way through.
Right.
And in doing so, it kind of treats the whole pathway, so there's some collateral damage, so to say. And for that reason, once someone's received radiation the first time, it's usually thought that you can't do it again for fear of the small intestine or the bladder or the normal parts of our body have already exceeded how much radiation they can receive. Now, the unique thing about this type of radiation is we're using what's called a radioactive isotope, meaning this is a little seed that's about the size of a pencil lead, and it gives off radiation in such a way that it only goes a couple millimeters away. So if you can place this inside of the body, it's going to deliver a very high dose of radiation, but it's limited. So the concept is if I can place these in sort of an array that is like a 3D structure, if I can place them in a sphere or place them in a box, and I can put it where the tumor is, you can actually retreat and do a very high dose of radiation without treating all the rest of the body, which is what we'd be afraid would cause too much side effects.
Does this usually follow then the normal or traditional form of radiation? Then you would do this, or can you do this first?
So the traditional way of doing radiation, believe it or not, if you go back to the 1910, 1920s, this was the only form of radiation that was around. But back then they used radium, which had a very long half-life, and for reasons we shouldn't go into right now for lack of time, it wasn't a very safe treatment. Mm-hmm. So over the decades, we've shifted more to using these external radiation techniques. And for gynecologic cancers, we do use a lot of radiation implants, but even that's a slightly different type. And the funny thing is about these type of seed implants is a lot of radiation oncologists and a lot of oncologists in general haven't seen it because it hasn't been around for so long. But as technology's improved and we have newer radiation sources, it's kind of bringing back that, you know, this is a treatment that used to work. There's no reason it wouldn't work now. Mm-hmm. And if you use it in the right situation, it can be very powerful.
You've treated over 90 women with reoccurring gynecologic cancer. How successful have you been with saving them from,
So we measure success in kind of one of two ways, okay? If you look at all the women that I've retreated when we've been trying to salvage their recurrence, I can control the tumor that we see in about 4 out of 5 cases, or almost 80%. Now, the problem, though, and this is the reason why I said you can measure that in 2 ways, is sometimes we run into the problem of, well, how important is it that I control the tumor that's come back in the pelvis? And then how important is it that I can control their whole cancer in their whole body? You know, if a woman has a recurrent cancer in the pelvis, that's a very awful thing to go through. In that, as the tumor grows, it's going to affect their bladder, it's going to affect their bowels. They tend to have a lot of pain, a lot of bleeding. It can mean they're going to suffer quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So sometimes little wins, as in controlling that tumor that came back in the pelvis, from the big picture can be a very good thing, because even though I might not be able to turn their cancer around or, you know, completely save them, I can at least probably provide them a pretty long period of time where they won't suffer.
That's incredible.
Keep doing what you're doing. And the full story of Dr. Feddok's on WKYT.com tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Jonathan Feddock. You can join the conversation by leaving your comments on WKYT.com or on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think.